Audio check, 321, 321. Press conference will get underway in 5 minutes. Just making sure that we got a good feed for all the folks at home.
chair.
It would be fun if they turned the corner right now.
Yeah, right now. Are you guys rolling? Never fails.
Good morning, everyone. While everyone gets situated up here, let me please introduce the group. I am Jennifer McLaughlin, the Chief Communications Officer of Romanucci and Blandin. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the legal team representing Jerry Herrington, and of course Jerry himself, also surrounded by friends, family, and supporters. You will first hear from founding partner Antonio Romanucci. Also from R&B, I'd like to acknowledge attorney Patrick Driscoll. You will hear from Hart, McLaughlin, and Eldridge partner Brian Eldridge. Also with him are partner Carter Grant, attorney Paige Smith. We would also like to acknowledge our senior litigation paralegal Dana Condos and the work of paralegal Morgan Forbes. And then lastly, she is not here, but certainly want to acknowledge the work of Lauren Caseberg and the Illinois Innocence Project. They were instrumental in Jerry's release. Lastly, and most importantly, it'll be our pleasure to allow you to hear from Jerry Herrington himself about his experience, and the attorneys will walk through the lawsuit. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're here because of this gentleman right here, Jerry Herrington. And that's because he didn't do it. He never did. He is innocent. He never should have been convicted. Never should have had his life derailed. Jerry Herrington is innocent, and a few months ago he got the exoneration he deserved. He got one form of justice, and today we are seeking accountability for another form of justice. Jerry Herrington spent nearly 29 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. He was 16 years old when he was arrested for disorderly conduct. Little did he know that he would be framed for a woman's murder from the Dearborn Homes Public Housing Project. He used to spend some time there, but he didn't live there. A murder that he had nothing to do with and that would prevent him from seeing the light of freedom again until he was released from prison at age 45 in June of 2020. And even then, it took another 5 years to clear his name. On March 4, 2025, Jerry Herrington was exonerated. His conviction was vacated, and the charges against him were dismissed. He survived his experience in prison, a very dark and challenging one, really unbelievable. Every day waiting for someone to help, someone to believe him, someone to open the door and let him live his life. Let him live his life as it was meant to be for all of us who are here today in the same way, a free man. Jerry, you have our deepest respect. And we are here today, though, because that respect is not enough. There needs to be accountability for this man's life being denied and derailed. The people and the municipal organizations involved must be held to account for the harms and losses incurred by Jerry. These defendants were hoping to keep Jerry in prison for the rest of his life. Indeed, at his sentencing, it was said that it was hopeful that Jerry, you either die in prison or you come out so old that you wouldn't be able to do anything at all. We are so grateful that you are here, that you proved everyone wrong, and that you are now leading an exemplary life, one that I know that we all should be emulating for your discipline, your regard for life, your respect for humanity. So we're here today to tell you about our civil lawsuit that we have filed to seek justice for Jerry. We will walk you through Jerry's case and the detailed claims in his complaint. It is an honor for our firm, Romanucci and Blandin, and also Hart, McLaughlin, and Eldridge, and my dear colleague, Brian Eldridge, to be here today and talk to you. And we also want to acknowledge all the work that was done, as Jen had mentioned, by Lauren Caseberg of the Innocence Project. We could not have been here without their help and all the help that they've done for so many people. They've now exonerated over 250 people in this state. And tragically, Jerry's case is not a one-off, as I just mentioned. There is a disturbing national awakening showing all of us that thousands of other people around the country have had the same experience as Jerry, being wrongfully convicted for something they did not do and losing years and years of their lives because of it. In Chicago, unfortunately, we are very painfully familiar with this process. This is not the first time we have stood before the media or the citizens of the city of Chicago saying that someone's been wrongfully convicted. It's happened hundreds and hundreds of times. So let me give you some statistics. And the reason that Jerry became a statistic is because the Chicago Police Department fabricates evidence. They lie about who did what. They deny what's called Brady material to the lawyers in the case representing people in criminal cases. As of March 1, 2025, this year, the National Registry of Exoneration data shows that there have been 3,646 exonerations in the U.S. from 1989 through 2024. We live in a state that ingloriously is first in exonerations. Unbelievable. I'll position this in a way that for anybody, the journalists who are in this room or online, to think about what I just said and why. Well, we know some of the whys. We know some of the infamous police officers in this city who have just, over decades, this pattern and practice of fabrication, of torture, of lying, of creating false narratives, coercing testimony, having people sign false confessions. That's all wrongful. That turns into convictions, and that turns into justice denied. And what matters today is Jerry, his right to civil justice for all he lost and all the ways in which he was harmed. His conviction for murder when he was a kid, 16 years old. You know, I never even asked you, Jerry, if you even were driving at that point. That's to put it in perspective, how young he was at the time. His loss of personal freedom totals 10,585 days. And each day, it's not like he could say, oh, I'm going to be out on the 10,585th day. Oh, no. He had about 15,000 more days to serve had that 60-year sentence been carried out. He didn't have a way out. Every day he was left wondering, when will I get out? If I will get out. So he paid dearly for the bad policing and insufficient investigation with decades of his life, the trauma to his personal relationships, and a derailment of his reputation, career aspirations, and earning potential. He deserves full accountability for these harms. So the Chicago Police Department, as an institution, condoned, enabled, and rewarded its detectives and officers to manipulate witnesses, falsify and fabricate evidence, physically abuse innocent people, make up confessions, and commit Brady violations. Not to mention all of the other unconstitutional conduct that they engaged in. This was a baseless arrest, malicious prosecution, and wrongful conviction. Without the malicious and unconstitutional conduct of the defendants, Jerry would never have had to serve. We would never have had to be here. He was ripped away from family and friends and forced to suffer through the unimaginable horror of spending 29 years in prison and as an innocent man. He had his life, liberty, and potential taken away from him. He never would have had the scars, pain, and trauma that resulted from him being wrongfully accused, incarcerated, and convicted of murder. I'd now like to call upon my dear colleague, Brian Eldridge, to come up to the podium and walk you through the details of the complaint. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you all. What a tremendous privilege it is to represent Jerry Herrington. And it is so heartening to see all of his family and friends around him. I know there's some who wish they could have been here today, but Jerry has the utmost support and respect and love of his community, and Jerry is a leader in his community. Today, with the filing of this civil rights lawsuit, we begin our fight for truth and justice on behalf of Jerry Herrington. You will hear from Jerry in just a moment, and I'll be brief. Notwithstanding all the pain and suffering and anguish that Jerry's been through, he is an incredible and inspiring man. He's passionate, he's giving, he's soulful, he's strong, he's smart, and most of all, he is resilient. Jerry is not a statistic anymore. He is a human being, he has rights, and we're here to exercise his rights going forward. Jerry spent almost 3 decades in prison under the cruelest of conditions and the toughest of circumstances. The torment and anguish of being ripped away from your life and your loved ones at the tender age of 16 years old, and then sitting in prison, watching your precious life tick away day after day after day, all the while knowing that you are innocent, knowing that you are in jail because of a corrupt criminal justice system, knowing that no matter how hard you try and no matter how loud you scream, no one is listening to you. Day after day, 10,000 plus days in jail, knowing you're innocent, is torture. For nearly 30 years, Jerry never saw a glimpse of justice. And now, having lived through decades of injustice, it is time for Jerry to pursue the one thing that he's been denied for so long. The thing that is promised to all of us, this land and the United States Constitution, the thing that so many of us take for granted: justice. And with justice comes accountability for all those involved with Jerry's wrongful conviction. And let me name some names, because Jerry's name was tainted. Tainted for 30 years. We're here to restore his name. And there's other people that need to be held to account. Officer Matthew Brandon, Officer James McKnight, Detective Edward Winstead, Detective Dolores Miles, Detective James Riley, Detective Jerome DeRoba, Officer Thomas Kelly, Officer James Ward, and Assistant State's Attorney William Taffanetti. And I would be remiss, of course, if I did not mention the City of Chicago Police Department, who condoned, approved of, ratified, accepted the unconstitutional tactics of its police department and the detectives and officers that I just named. Jerry's case has virtually every hallmark that you see in these wrongful conviction cases. Our complaint, and we encourage you to review it, includes detailed allegations of fabricated evidence, falsified police reports as plain as day, witness coercion and manipulation, physical abuse and brutality. Jerry, when he was interrogated at 16, they tried to force a confession out of him. He was beaten, assaulted, battered. At 16, how many of us would not give in to that pressure? Jerry never did. Courage, strength, resolve, even at the age of 16. But that didn't stop the detectives. Jerry may not have confessed, so what they did was they made up a confession. It's not recorded, no audio, no video. Jerry didn't sign off on it. There's no signatures, no initials, no nothing. It's made up. They lied under oath. And at the end of the day, what we saw in Jerry's case is a systemic pattern and practice of unconstitutional policing tactics and misconduct. Jerry, our team stands with you. Okay. We're ready to fight for you. We're ready to restore your good name. We're ready to hold all of those wrongdoers to account. And we're ready to get the justice that you have long deserved. Let me introduce you to Jerry Herrington.
I'm Jerry Herrington, and I want to thank everybody behind me who support me, my legal team, my family, those who came out to support me. And I'm just thankful to God, for allowing me to be here to tell my story. And I just want to try to appeal to everybody who's watching and listening to imagine yourself being 16, sitting somewhere on the bench, and in the type of atmosphere in the city of Chicago, which I love Chicago, that was created by the political system here. This will allow for the police to kidnap me that day. I was just sitting on the bench at 16 years old, and snatch me up and take me to the different police stations that ended up in one of the known district of terror, Area 1, where they would interrogate me, physically beat me, threaten me, and then haul me off and send me to the county jail at 16. And I never knew that day that I would not see the city again, and I'd be being accused for a murder I didn't do. And they ran me through the system, and in the process of me going through the system, in the early part of me being in the juvenile, I almost lost my life. I got my head split, and so it was the danger I knew I was facing, and I was in a situation with something I didn't do, and they had the bagging of the system. At this time, wasn't no nothing public about John Burge. Everybody believed what the police said, and so it was hard to convince people of your innocence, even my lawyer. My mother, my grandmother knew of my innocence. My father, they're not here, but I know they're here in spirit. I'm a son of a police officer. My father was a police officer. He also served as a politician, an alderman, not in this city, but another city he lived in. And even though he appealed to the judge would go along with this fabrication, convict me, and tell me he wanted me to die in penitentiary. I was 17 when he told me this. He sent me down to one of the worst prisons in the state, Stateville, which I almost lost my life being in that place. But due to God, my faith, family support, my mother, my father, my grandmother, who believed in me, knew I was innocent. She passed during the time I was in prison. I wasn't able to go to her funeral. She wasn't able to see me get released. I had to grow up in that place. Teens, my 20s, my 30s. Like I said, I got out at 45. But I kept fighting. I grew in that place to keep fighting. And I had people to come and join the fight and make it possible for me to be standing here exonerated. But even though I'm exonerated, I still got to fight and prove my innocence, because this city has a problem with accountability, being corrective, dealing with their police officer, dealing with the mindset that was put in place during those years that John Burge and other officers took upon themselves to fabricate cases and abuse people. Some of the brothers up here are part of that. And so I'm here today because of family and faith. And people believed in me. The Innocent Project, they believed in me and helped me fight to get free and get exonerated. And as much as I love the city, I want to hold people accountable. We shouldn't have to go through this here. I'm constantly having to fight to prove my innocence. It should be people willing to hold themselves accountable when the wrong has been shown in the court system. But we had to go through this process. Can't nothing give my teenage years back, my 20s, my 30s. I know that. But at least somebody had to be held accountable so this won't happen to nobody else or somebody else's kid at 16.
That's right.
Right.
And so somebody got to be held accountable. And if this is the approach we have to do, so be it. I'm in for the fight.
There you go.
Thank you, Jerry.
We'll open it up for questions.
Tony, are any of the cops or prosecutors still practicing at this time? Or is there a way to hold them accountable?
So we can give you a more specific answer, Charlie. Many of them are deceased. Many of them, the state's attorney, for example, is Tofinelli.
No, he's I think Taffanati, William Taffanati, my understanding is he's still at the
Oh, he's still.
state's attorney's
okay.
office in a different role. He's
Yeah.
not prosecuting cases. Thank you. But there's definitely 2 of the detectives who are deceased. But most of them actually are still alive. And so we're looking forward to asking them some tough questions.
And for Jerry, can you tell us about those early days when you were taken into custody and you knew what the story was, but you were still being taken off to prison anyway? What was going through your mind as a 17-year-old boy looking forward to a life behind bars for something you did?
You know, I was frightened, man. I was scared, man. You know, I didn't know what, you know, because I've been told that, you know, they was going to release me, you know what I'm saying, because they had originally, they have no charge. And then they all of a sudden charged me with disorderly conduct. So the murder charge never came until, like I said, I got to Area 1. And so that's when all the process of the interrogation and abuse happened. And so it's my first time, you know what I'm saying, being in a situation like that and being in one of a known district, because, you know, at that time, in certain neighborhoods, everybody knew about these certain districts of police, you know what I'm saying, departments, you know what I'm saying. So I wasn't aware of Area 1. I never been there before. So I knew I haven't did no murder. You know, I didn't know what to expect.
And you said you almost had your head split open once you got into jail. What was the circumstance there? Just running with some of the other people who were
Yeah, it was just, you know, in a juvenile, you know, got my head split in juvenile. That was the atmosphere of being in prison, you know, and I ain't do the case. I shouldn't have been there. And that was one moment. And then I went to prison in Stateville. That was another moment I almost got killed. So that's why I say I'm thankful, and I know it's God that allowed me to be alive. And the people who was very supportive and allowed me to be able to make it through was my mother and my father. And I was fortunate enough all the years I did that they did that time with me, especially my mother, because she was here. My father's in Mississippi, but I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to lose my mother. I lost my grandmother, but I didn't lose my mother and my father. You know, so.
Tell us about your life since your exoneration. What have you done? What are you doing now?
Well, one of the things I wanted to do, and I did, you know what I'm saying, a lot of it was participate in getting an organization, which I did with a partner of mine, so I was locked up in ECCSC and doing volunteer work, de-escalation, mentorship, because I knew I was young, I was 16. And so I felt like I had more of a better connection to get at the youth in my neighborhood and in schools. And so I've been doing motivation speaking mostly outside of Chicago. I've been to Hinsdale High and some of the schools in the suburbs, talking to those kids and connected to those kids. And so those are some of the things I'm passionate about. You know, so that's what I want to do. I want to reach the youth, you know, get at the youth, and so they don't go through and experience some of the things I had to go through in life, and juvenile, getting caught up and all that. So.
And apart from the money, will there be a certain satisfaction in the city in being forced to admit its error?
Well, you know, this the thing about it. You know, it's kind of like the judge who sentenced me and told me he wanted me to die in the penitentiary. When I got exonerated, the judge apologized, told me he was sorry, even though the time was done. And, you know, it kind of stirred up emotionally where I got sitting in that same courtroom. A judge wanted me to die, but now a judge was apologizing. So I know it's still good people in the system. And I'm just seeking that we can hold people accountable, you know, because it was an atmosphere at that time, the 90s and the 80s, put in place for this to happen. And people got to be held accountable, this stuff will continue to happen. And so my satisfaction is trying to hold people accountable. I can't get back my years, I know that. And so I try to live my life at the age I'm in now, 50, trying to give back and help and do the best I can just to live and survive.
Holding yourself up as an example to other kids at this point?
Yes, most definitely. That's why, like I said, I want to get at the young people. Get at the teenagers, talk to the teenagers, and try to be an example. I'm not perfect, but try to be the best example I can, and show them I'm a walking testimony. I didn't give up. So I kept fighting, and that was the main thing. I didn't give up. I wrote. I fought my case, kept my case alive. So,
Right. Tony, Brian, any closing remarks?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. We're so used to repeating the same names in the city of Chicago about who really were the bad apples, the Burge, the Guevaras, the Watts. But what we can see, especially with Jerry's case, and others too, not only Jerry's case, is this culture was so deep, it was so pervasive, it was so deeply rooted that you didn't have to have the name Burge, Watts, or Guevara to have a police officer falsify testimony or beat someone up or torture them or force a confession. And the city of Chicago needs to come to a reckoning with that they had a very deep, dark past, and they need to start putting these matters to rest and move forward, and with new leadership, look ahead and clean this up. This has been going on too long. There are too many cases that are pending in this city because of what happened for decades, because it was acceptable. It was okay to do because Jerry didn't have a name. He was just somebody that they were going to convict. He was somebody that they didn't care about. They treated them pretty much like when I was a public defender. When I started out in the mid-1980s in the public defender's office, you know what men like him were called? Dogs. Everybody was a dog. You look at how insulting, how unfair that is to be considered that, but that's because police didn't look at them as human. And so it was easy for them to pick on somebody, as Brian and I talked about Jerry's case. It was the path to least resistance. It was an easy conviction to get. That, ladies and gentlemen, those times are over. Okay? Confessions need to be videotaped, they need to be audio recorded, everything. Those times have passed. Let's move forward. Let's clean up the cases that are there.
One quick question. You mentioned, Jerry, your dad was a cop. Where was he a cop?
in Jefferson County, Fayette, Mississippi. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.